Hey, Silas.
Hi, hi, Laurie. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm all right. Little allergies going on, but that's spring.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you suffer every year?
Yeah, just for, a period of time, but I'm
Yeah,
okay. Got my
yeah.
antihistamines going. How about you? How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I just have a little, well, it's not little, but I trouble with my back, which is something that happens, from time to time with me. I'm very tall. I come from a long line of very tall men, and I've always had back trouble. So it's fine sitting here, but sometimes I might make the slightest movement, which makes my back go into spasm. So if I go in the middle of the session, don't worry about it.
Okay.
I know how to take care of it, but just so you know, that's there in case I do suddenly scream
Okay.
out in pain.
Okay. Is there anything else I need to make sure where we don't go or anything? Okay.
No, 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 absolutely not. Otherwise, I'm really good. Thanks. I'm really
Yeah.
good. The sun is shining. It's a beautiful day. It's been, it's been cold, but it's been very bright, which I love. So
Yeah.
good, good.
Nice. Good. I just want to check in briefly from our last session that we were
Mm,
working on the whole thing about status and all of that. And
mm.
how did you do with that? You were going to let it go and take care of yourself and focus on gratitude.
Yeah, um, it's been very, very powerful, actually. That has been a real eye opener for me.
Mm,
Um, and it's, how can I say this? It's not been easy, actually. It's wonderful to kind of know that about myself, but it's also the thing that the part of it that's not easy is recognizing how vulnerable, I am around that, how aware of threat I am and how I perceive threat,
mm,
and that kind of recognition is not easy because, as I said last time, what I am recognizing is that I'm carrying something. I'm carrying, childhood trauma through my behavior even today.
mm.
That's not an easy thing to know about oneself, but at the same time, it's incredibly useful. So I have been practicing a lot since then, practicing gratitude, really looking at concentrating on what I have rather than what I don't have. And I've been doing a lot of journaling around that, and it's been incredibly helpful.
Nice.
And I think one of the main things that comes out of it is recognizing that, you know, my life and my journey and my path is completely different to anybody else's.
Mm.
Um, therapists say this wonderful phrase, compare and despair,
Yeah,
but we naturally compare ourselves to other people,
we do. Social
you know.
beings that we
Yeah,
are.
we really do. And, my background, can you see me well enough, by the way?
Yes, did
Is it a
things get
little?
a little bit dark on one side,
Yeah,
but
yeah, because the light's gone down. So I'm just going to turn on some lights in the room
okay.
to make the view a bit better. And then, excuse me, oh, just to adjust to the sunlight changing. Yeah, what I was saying was, my background, I went to a public school in the 70s and 80s, and they're very, very competitive places.
Mm,
And I also grew up with, three brothers, and my dad, who was a very competitive man. And so I have this, there is this kind of vein of competition.
mhm.
And with that kind of conditioning, I naturally put myself in competition with other people in a really unuseful way,
Yeah,
so to answer your question, it has been really useful, but it's also been um sensitive. Hmm.
yeah,
And actually turning my head away from the competition, the unconscious competition with other people, and towards a place where I'm just building my own life for myself, or living my own life for myself, against kind of pitting myself against my own values,
mm,
has been a really, really useful thing to do.
nice,
Mm.
nice. Not completely comfortable, but useful.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
great. I'm aware in the beginning of our relationship, you were saying that you wanted this coaching to be deep.
Mm.
And I'm wondering if that ticked that box, if that worked for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And the whole Rewired to Relate course really did that actually. It was very, very useful in two different ways. One, to be able to bring, that work to my own clients,
Nice.
but the other is the self-development part of it, or the self-recognition, I should say,
Yeah.
part of it. And yeah, that work, it did go deep. It still does. And yeah, like I say, it's been sensitive, but yeah, it went deep.
Great. So we were just talking about last time's status. Let's broaden it out and just do a whole, look at the whole Rewired to Relate
Yeah,
course and see how
yeah,
that's
that
been
would be
going
great.
for you since you finished it a few weeks ago.
Mm, mm.
So just broadly, what are some top things that you remember from the experience?
The practice that I took away of ABC, awareness, breathing, and choice,
Mhm.
it has been incredibly powerful. And I am just finding myself doing that all of the time. We talk a lot about mindfulness,
Mhm.
and we talk in the coaching world a lot about mindfulness. But it's interesting. You discover a new practice. You go, oh, this is amazing. You do it for a while, and then it tails off without you even realizing.
Mhm.
And so it's the simplest thing to be aware of your breathing, but it's also amazing how unaware we become of it.
Yeah.
And in practicing the ABC practice, what I noticed was, and I keep noticing it now, is how often I hold my breath.
Oh.
When I'm doing something, when I'm working, physically, if I'm doing some carpentry or something, it's amazing how often I hold my breath.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Somebody's just popped into mind, a very dear friend of mine who's a theatre practitioner and a puppeteer. When I did some work with him once, he kept saying to me, breathe, breathe, you know. And I don't know if lots of people do this when they're working, they hold their breath when they're doing something. But that ABC practice just made me aware of how unconscious I am of my breathing patterns. So since the course, I've become incredibly conscious of it. And it's amazing how quickly those hormones, those chemicals drain out of your brain when you breathe properly. So I've just been watching myself getting stressed and watching myself getting limbic and reacting emotionally to things. And I just stepping back and breathing, and releasing the tension from my shoulders. And almost immediately I get a different perspective.
Oh, nice.
Almost immediately I can feel my prefrontal cortex, the blood going back into it, and being able to think. So that practice has been really a really big takeaway for me.
Great. What are some of the ways that's instances where that's helped you, or one anyway?
Well, we just discussed before we came on air that I have some theatre work coming up. There was a period of time where I didn't have any auditions. It was very quiet, and people around me were getting lots of work.
Yeah.
And that was challenging. And then suddenly, as happens in our profession, I have to constantly remind myself of this. Like London buses, a whole bunch of auditions turned up, and and I got 2 of them, and there's another one that I'm still possibly in the running for, which meant that there was this awkward situation where we're actually kind of holding off jobs and seeing which one, because you can only I can only do possibly one at a time, and they all clash. So it was a question of there's some difficult negotiations going on at the moment. That makes me feel very nervous, because I don't like to let people down. Also, there is a chance that you may lose the jobs if you take too long to reply to them. And so it was a kind of difficult position to be in. And from day to day, it takes a long time for all of the communication to happen, from the executive producers to the producers to the casting director to my agent to me and back and forth.
Yeah.
You know, these things take a long time. I found myself getting more and more and more stressed. And so each morning I was just waking up and noticing that, my dreams would be interlinked with things going wrong. You know, I was perceiving threat in an otherwise actually fabulous situation. I mean, it's what a great problem to have.
Yeah.
Which job do I do?
Right.
Totally different to the stress I was feeling before. Like, why am I not getting any auditions and everybody else is? You know.
Yeah.
And I just had to notice myself doing that. So every morning I did a little bit of journaling and just breathed and breathed. And that helped me to have a really clear head about these decisions, and be really clear in my communication with my agent as well about, you know, what I wanted to do, weighing up the different options, how I wanted to speak to people about it, you know, made it far less personal, far more, it was just about business, you know. It's kind of removing my own stress from it, just made it about business. So that's one area that immediately comes to mind, you know.
Yeah, excellent. So moving forward, I trust you will have some kind of practice or habit around that. What's your plan?
Absolutely. Oh, it's already, you know, it's already nailed. It's become a habit already. I'm just finding it so useful. Yeah.
Good. Excellent. Great. I'm curious about be safe and certain. So the 6 elements of belonging and status, autonomy, and so on. We talked about status last time, but I'm curious how you're working with that and the threats and rewards. You've talked about threat mode. Just want to hear more about that, where you're feeling threats coming from.
That's the element that has, you know, been most powerful for me. I guess that in different scenarios there are different elements at play, and with different people there are different elements. Somebody might say, oh, I really crave belonging, or I really crave autonomy, you know, and of course there are combinations of those elements in every person and in every situation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But for me, the status thing has been a huge eye opener, you know, as we talked about last time.
Yeah.
So how has that helped me since? I find myself becoming much more at one with myself, because I'm stepping back from, I realize that, you know, we all probably crave status, want status at some point, but I'm beginning to realize that with me, it feels unhealthy in the sense that there's too much of a need for it, which means that it comes from something way back in my childhood where I just didn't have that status in my perception.
Yeah.
You know, so it comes from a place of trauma. So actually seeking status is still coming from that place of trauma. You know, so it feels like an unhealthy thing to do. And that's really been helping me in my work, because I'm starting to look at jobs now and realize that, you know, my desire to do a particular job might be linked to the fact that I just want to be noticed.
Yeah.
You know, I might go for the job that seems like it's got higher profile.
Right.
As opposed to, you know, sitting back and looking at the scripts and looking at the lifestyle choices that go with those jobs, and making a choice that sits with me, not with how other people might perceive me.
Beautiful.
You know, and that has really helped. I just noticed myself being a lot more, making choices that are for me and about me and good for me, as opposed to making choices that seem to come from, you know, some unconscious trauma way back. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Sounds like it'll lead to more satisfaction overall.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
absolutely.
have the choice of your lifestyle and so on.
Yeah. And I'm already feeling that. You know, I'm already a lot more comfortable in my choices. And what that has released me into is being so much more happy for other people doing well.
Ah,
So much more um, excited that
mm,
other people are doing well, because I'm pitting myself against them far less,
yeah.
you know,
That
and that's
compare and
been
despair
wonderful.
is much less.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's a great release, to be able to be happy for people as opposed to jealous of them.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And of course, we talked about this before, that jealousy is an emotion, and it's okay to have it, and just if you name it, then and own it, then you can find some control over it. So
Yeah.
um, but that release for me has been really helpful.
Excellent.
Mm.
Nice. Very nice. So you actually get more rewards in the end by taming that one.
Yes, yeah, exactly,
Mm.
exactly. And just recognizing, I mean, of course there will be times when status is important. um, Anybody going for any kind of level in any form of work is ostensibly, you get to a certain status, and then that affords you the ability to get onto the next level. And
Sure.
so it's part of any kind of career building. But if you recognize that it's just business, and it doesn't come from something personal, especially some personal trauma,
Mm.
then you can make those choices without being wrapped up in them.
Yeah. It's a little more pragmatic choices.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Fantastic.
Pragmatic as opposed to emotional choices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So also with Be Safe and Certain, one of the modules was about noticing others' reactions and taming situations. I think we talked about taming situations where things could get a little hot sometimes on
Yeah,
stage. And how are you
yeah,
doing with like being able to temper a situation because you recognize what others' emotional
um,
states are?
yeah. That's been really powerful, and actually, without stepping across any kind of confidentiality boundaries, I also had a session with a client recently where you know uh, we talked about that, and it was really really good for the client too, just to recognize that, or to start thinking when other people are limbic, and recognizing that limbic states are addictive.
Mm,
We can see that, and you can see that in road rage. One person kicks off, everybody else kicks off.
yes.
you know um,
Contagious and addictive.
yeah, completely contagious. Yeah, contagious, that's the word I meant, not addictive. Contagious, but it is also addictive. Yeah.
It is. Mm,
um, just to recognize that limbic states are contagious, to be able to be the person who steps back from that, to dispel some of that contagion by recognizing that this person actually is not ostensibly out to attack me, and therefore I have to defend by attacking back.
mm,
But this person has an unmet need.
yeah.
You know, that's a really powerful form of listening, to get inside the other person's listening rather than, feeling attacked, to get curious about why this person might be behaving in this way. You know, that has really helped. I'm finding that's it's really helpful in my relationship with my partner as well.
Mm,
When things get tense and suddenly you just are both, ramping up the emotional reaction, to get curious about what's going on with this person in front of me. What might they need that
mm.
they're unable to ask for or even recognize they need? Just the thing of getting curious calms me down. Like,
Nice.
what's going on with this person?
Mm,
It's a far more compassionate way of being in relationship. So
beautiful. And how does that go? Are you able to, so you get curious so you can learn something about them or the situation.
mm,
How do you do that? It calms you down. Do you also supply them with what they need or talk to them or what happens?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the next thing for me is to ask the question: is there something that you want here?
Mm,
Is there something that you need here that I'm missing?
mm,
I'm not really hearing what it is that you want. I'm not hearing any requests, but maybe it would be good for us to just stand back and you know and yeah, just get curious about that. there's clearly something that's missing here for you, and I can't see what it is. I don't know what it is. Can you think about that? That's happened on a couple of occasions. And I think, in a kind of business setting, in a team setting, to recognize, that person over there who keeps kicking off, perhaps there's some clear communication that wants to happen with that person. Take that person aside outside of the team and say, is there something here that's going to help you? Is there something here that's missing for you? Because I'm feeling that there is, but I can't see what it is myself. I think that's the next step, just to first of all recognize that there's an unmet need, and then the second step is get curious about that need, and the third step is perhaps be brave enough to ask, what is your need?
How might you see that playing out? So I know you're going to be spending a lot of time with a cast and theater work and a lot of preparation. I imagine that gets stressful sometimes. And I imagine people get limbic in those stressful situations. How might you use some of this awareness there?
That's a really good question. In any kind of creative situation, there are, I find myself going through waves of liking people, disliking people, being attracted to people, being repelled by people. It takes, because you all come together in a very intense situation, and at the beginning there's all this excitement and you're kind of collaborating. However, what you haven't done actually is address the fact that you are different personalities, and that outside of the situation you may or may not like this person, or they may or may not like you, and that at some point when you're working together for a long time will come up. But it comes up unconsciously. So one of the things that to kind of answer the question instinctively comes up is be patient. Be patient around the people that you may not like, or you may not like the way in which they work, or naturally you just kind of find yourself not wanting to go towards that person in a break time and get to know who they are. Be patient with that, because it's going to change. And that again is about, I think that's about curiosity. Rather than making your mind up about people, notice that you're going to make your mind up about them, because that's what your limbic brain does. And sidestep that and get curious about them.
Sorry, you're going to...
No, carry on.
I was just wondering if you want to play with that a little bit. With these, like, the people you like and you don't like. Because that could be coming from your own preferences.
Totally.
Totally. So imagine somebody that you don't like. And let's just assume for the moment, I just want to check it out with you, but let's assume for the moment that that's a threat reaction in you. There's some kind of pushing away. It's not a big fear thing, but it's still a little tiny, your brain going, there's something scary or not savory about that person that's not good for you. What might be triggered in that moment? Like, is it belonging, status, autonomy, fairness, certainty, expectations? What do they trigger in you that has you respond with not liking?
That's a really good question, actually. I think it might be status, actually. I think it might come down to that person's got something that I don't have. That person's better than me, or that person's, not as good as me. That thing that kind of gives you a false sense of status. I'm better than that person. That person doesn't really speak the Shakespearean meter very well, or or that person's taking a really long time to learn their lines and it's getting in the way, of the rest of us. I think it might be around status, kind of that comparison thing.
So it's a little more subtle. Than the version of your friend calls and says, I've just got a starring role, which creates big status reaction, but this is a smaller one.
I think so. I'm trying to think if it's any of the other elements that might. I think it is about that. I think it is about status. Yeah.
Hmm. And now that you know that, and you have this thing about compare and despair that you know about,
Mm,
how might you don't have to. I mean, you get to like and dislike as much as you wish.
mm.
But I'm just wondering if you could do something different. What makes you
Um,
dislike someone?
yeah. Again, it's that awareness thing, just stepping back and recognizing that it's it's not what's going on inside of them that's creating the situation. It's what's going on inside of me. So to step back and get curious about that person. You know, what might it be like for that person struggling with Shakespearean meter?
Mm,
Or what might it be like for that person to struggle with learning their lines?
mm,
You know, what's going on with that person? Get curious about what's going on with that person. And then I think maybe, you know, either just watch and get curious or get active about getting curious.
mm,
You know, maybe go and spend some time with that person, not in a kind of very obvious way, what's going on with you, but just sidle up to them and have a cup of tea with them in a break, you know,
mhm,
and just, yeah, get curious about what's happening with them. In other words, kind of blank yourself out.
mm,
And what I mean by that is try to blank out whatever is going on inside of you that's making you be limbic.
mm.
Does that make sense?
I think so. Would that work for you?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I noticed myself doing that, you know, even at the R&D workshop last week. Just I could see myself doing this thing that, oh, you're in a new situation and you're doing that. You're immediately starting to make judgments of people. You got that person pinned down as really fun and that person pinned down as not so fun.
Hmm.
You know, and I just saw myself doing that and going, oh, there you go again, you know, stepping back from that and then just really watching when this
Hmm.
person, you know, who I may have made a poor judgment or a bad judgment about, gets up and does some work. Get really curious, really watch their stuff. Like, you know, what are they doing? What are they doing that I really like? What are they doing that impresses me? So there's a way into kind of connecting with them.
Hmm.
I'm just thinking that that's maybe that's also has something to do with belonging, just creating an atmosphere where everybody belongs in a team together,
Yeah.
kind of drawing people in, you know.
So that might be the antidote. Go to belonging instead of have this status threat.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Belonging's powerful. I know you know that, but
yeah, yeah, very, very powerful.
mhm.
Uh,
You've talked before about how it feels like a family sometimes on
mm,
sets.
yeah, it really does. It really does. And you know, that's one of the most immediate things about, you know, getting together and starting a creative process together is that you're an immediate family with one exciting intention between you. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
you've all got the same exciting intention. But
I
I guess if that's the case, if you know people come together in that family, there can be a lot of threat there for people. You know,
absolutely.
yeah,
Sure.
it,
We're,
because you don't know each other very
yeah. And everyone's probably trying to find their place and how do I
well.
fit in this hierarchy or this system or
Yeah,
who am I
yeah,
in this group?
yeah, exactly, exactly. Mm.
Very natural human tendencies.
Hmm.
So if you could notice your own, okay, there's something over there and it's a status thing for me, and
Mm.
instead go for belonging.
Hmm.
Is that what you're saying? Like invite them in or get
Yeah,
curious?
yeah, yeah. Be a lot more inclusive, and you know, not just in terms of my actions, but in terms of my thoughts. Yeah, I keep thinking about, you know, we talk in coaching about the different levels of listening,
Hmm.
you know, and that's a really powerful kind of listening, to put your own thoughts behind you
Yeah.
and get curious about what's going on with the other person, you know.
Mm.
And I think that for me and probably for everybody is a constant battle. You know, we know how much it takes in coaching to really stop thinking about what I'm going to have for tea and really listen to what that person's saying in a
Yeah.
non-judgmental way.
Yes.
There's a lot of energy. So I think that in any kind of teamwork, that in itself is a great practice.
Mm.
And to recognize that any sort of threatening or unsociable behavior that we see in other people or we deem in other people, to remember that there is something behind that that's creating that, and to get curious about what's behind it.
Yeah.
Not be confronted by the immediacy of that kind of behavior, but to go, what's behind that?
Yeah.
You know,
What's their
why
need
is
right now?
yeah.
Yeah. And so what is it you like? Those people that you're drawn towards naturally, you think, oh, this person's fun. I think you used that word.
Mm.
What's that's a reward mechanism happening in you. What's creating that?
I think that's really around belonging.
Mm.
You know, that's around that's around creating a troop, belonging to a troop.
Mm.
I'm just kind of thinking about how you know, I have a very strong autonomy. I really enjoy being on my own, and I like working on my own, and that has been really helpful over this last year of, you know, of various different lockdowns. I've been getting on with a lot of work at home on my own, and I'm happy in that space. And I'm just beginning to realize now, because I'm going into a, you know, a long job with a, you know, with a theatre company, that's going to be completely different to what I've been experiencing over the last year.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm beginning to realize, actually, as I step into it, how much of that belonging I have missed.
Mm.
You know, I can do really well on my own.
Yeah.
But I'm a social animal like we all are.
Yes.
You know, and when I, you know, just kind of doing the workshop last week, I immediately wanted to attach myself to people. I immediately wanted to kind of, but it
Yeah.
was quite hard because we're doing a social distancing thing, and it's all very strange and odd, and we're
Mm.
dipping our toes into, you know, a new way of being. But I just realized that craving inside of me to belong to a troop again.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
you know, so kind of seeking people out and seeing, oh, I really like that person. I've got a really good, strong, instinctive feeling about that person is a kind of a seeking as well.
Yeah. I can imagine you in a new group where some people are nervous or, you know, trying to find their place and all of that. With all of your skills and your mindsets, your beautiful mindsets and self-awareness that you come
Mm.
with, I can imagine you have such an amazing impact on the whole
Mhm.
group,
Thank you.
because that's all contagious too, you know, and your
Yeah,
appreciation for belonging and being able
yeah,
to shift your mindset from, oh, that person is annoying me, to curiosity. I can
yeah.
imagine that the impact is just glorious in those
Oh,
troops.
thank you very much for saying that. Yeah. You just reminded me of something actually. There was a conversation in the theatre. It was during a lunchtime, and two people were sitting having their lunch. It's a huge theatre. We're at the Globe. It's massive, you know. And because we're doing the social distancing, we are all being very aware of, you know, what we touch, what we don't touch, you know, how close we can and can't be. And I realized on the first day of our 3-day workshop that we had all found our safe spaces and we were going to them. And I was thinking, gosh, we really miss that bonding that you do in breaks with people, because we're all aware of staying away from each other, you know. And two people were sitting out in the sun. I thought, I'm going to go and join them. So I went and had this conversation with them. You just reminded me of this. It just popped up. And, you know, they invited me in and they were talking about somebody, and they were both ostensibly having a good bitch about this person, you know.
Hmm.
And I just, at one point, they turned to me and I kind of thought, yeah, I don't know the person. I said, I don't know the person at all, but I'm really curious as to what's going on with them. I'm
Mm.
really curious about, you know, why they're behaving in that way and what might be happening for them at home, or, you know. And I just naturally went into that thing of, you know,
Hmm.
recognizing that this person is in a limbic place and is rubbing people's backs up, you know. And one of the other people who was listening just kind of went, "That's a really wise thing to say,"
Mm.
you know. And I said, "Yeah, it's a good way to think about people in scenarios, you know."
Mm.
So
Mm.
you just reminded me of that, even almost kind of unconsciously bringing the work in, and
Yeah, you've been
you know,
practicing this a lot. Yeah,
yeah, and just
beautiful.
having that influence without um, setting out to, you know. Yeah, but thank you for saying that. It's very kind.
Mhm. Yeah. And how was it to feel, how did you feel when that person said that was a wise thing to say?
It felt good. It didn't feel like an egotistical thing. I didn't go, yes, I am wise. I just thought, well, that's really that's actually kind of opened up all of our thought processes. Opened up our compassion, all three of us, just to kind of recognize that and put that there. Is I could feel them going, oh, maybe we should think differently about this person or this situation, you know, and that just felt constructive, I
Nice.
think.
Beautiful. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. It wasn't an intended thing; it just happened.
No,
You know.
yeah.
But
But
I think that's the thing is that that I have really noticed that since doing the rewired to relate. It's a great title actually, rewiring to relate.
mm,
Like change the wiring so you can relate better,
mhm.
and that we can all relate better. It's a really good title. But I have noticed since doing the course that that side of me has ramped up. Just drop the judgments and get curious. Recognize that we're all lumbered with this, ancient brain that works in a very ancient way, in a very kind of, basic way in many respects.
Mm,
And recognize that every single person you come across has got the same brain. And so, for all of the ways in which you behave, they're also in the same position.
yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Mm.
Mm. The only other thing I can think of from the program is around brain care. And I think we've talked a lot
Mm.
about that in the past, but I'm just curious if there's any takeaways for you around self-care and making sure
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
manage your brain and so on. What was
Yeah.
that part for you?
There has been actually. There's a lot of takeaways from that. I think one of the biggest takeaways for me is sleeping. Um, there is a kind of culture around not getting enough rest. You know, I remember very well people used to say about Margaret Thatcher. There was an amazing thing about her that she could do all of this, extraordinary amount of work on 4 hours sleep a night.
Mhm.
And I remember hearing that in the 80s and thinking, that's really unhealthy. We're being led by somebody who's only sleeping 4 hours of the night. That can't be right. She must be a mess inside. No wonder she's so aggressive. It kind of like occurred to me even then. But there is a culture, that we kind of feel that we should be putting more and more hours into the day.
Yeah.
And I'm very guilty of that myself. I can drive myself quite hard, and there are lots of shoulds going on in my head.
Mhm.
So to actually take time out and go, no, I'm going to stop doing this now. I'm going to turn the phone off. I'm not going to answer that email. I'm not going to stay up late thinking I should be doing this or doing that. I'm just going to go to bed because I want to. Lockdown has been fantastic for that.
Yeah.
Because lots of the things that we feel we should be doing, going out and seeing people, going to the theatre, going to the cinema, whatever, have been taken away from us. And there's far less to do. And so a lot more time to spend pampering ourselves.
Mhm.
So I've been really getting into the whole thing of sleeping more, recognizing from the course that that is actually really good for my brain.
Yeah.
That's a really good way to recharge my prefrontal cortex.
Mhm.
Which means that the next day I can be far more efficient on a lot less, putting a lot less time in, has been
Yeah.
really, really good.
There's that efficiency and also being able to access that compassion that we've been talking about.
Yeah, yeah,
That'll all go away if you're just running on empty.
yeah, yeah. So I've really been getting into sleeping. And of course, the older we get, the more sleep we need, and my mum, bless her, is in an old people's home, and because she's mostly locked down in there, It's been a very difficult time for her. She says, I'm sleeping all of the time, son. And I'm always like, what's that like for you? She goes, well, I wish I could do a little bit more. I said to her, I'm so jealous of you. I'd love to be able to just, sit in a chair and snooze in the middle of the day because I can.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
two different perspectives. But since doing the course, I have been taking much more care of myself, and it's mostly in the form of sleeping more and not feeling like I should jump out of bed or I should set an alarm.
Mm. Nice.
And I've started to practice as much as I can, not setting an alarm, but just allowing myself to wake up when my body wakes up.
Mm.
Of course, if I've got a very early thing to do and I think I probably won't wake up in time for that, I've got to set an alarm.
Yeah.
But I did read about a while ago about how bad alarms are for us, because you may not be at the end of your
Sleep
it's the
cycle.
circadian, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Circadian cycle. You may not be at the end of it, and so you're interrupting that. It can be very, very bad for your system to interrupt your natural patterns of sleep. So I've been trying to do that since the course as well.
Nice.
Setting my alarm a lot less, turning my phone off much earlier, going to bed when I want to.
Very nice. So sleeping more, breathing more.
Yeah,
being more
yeah.
aware.
I think those are two practices that have really come out of it: sleeping more and being much more aware of my breath.
Nice, nice. Any other takeaways for you from that?
No, I think those are the main. I think those are the main things, actually. Curiosity about other people and what's going on with them, recognizing unmet needs, recognizing, where there's a real need in me for one or more of those elements, specifically status for me, and taking more care of myself in the understanding that it's better for my brain.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, those are the key takeaways.
Yeah. And there was something about create more belonging. I think that was part of the,
Yeah.
Great.
There's just the thing around belonging, just to recognize that, sometimes something can't be fed. This is an extraordinary situation in which our need for other people and our need to belong can't be as fed as it was before, because we can't connect with people as much.
Yeah.
So I'm starting to find myself getting more creative around how I connect with people, and also more creative around how I can find belonging in myself.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Do you have any tips for how to do that?
I think that the word that comes to mind actually is just patience. Patience that. But there's an interesting thing about introversion and extroversion. I think many of us are probably recognizing that we're more through this scenario, we're more introvert than we give ourselves credit for. I think the thing of, feeling like you have to be extroverted, you've got to go out there and you've got to meet people, and, to recognize that you can get a lot from being on your own. You can get a lot from, in internalizing and creating a life for yourself. I'm always curious about how people manage to survive in prison and in solitary confinement scenarios. That I get really curious about that. I read Nelson Mandela's book a long, long time ago, but really curious about how does a person like that survive in a scenario where the connections to other people are cut off. There is a way of seeing yourself as another person. There is a way of, being with yourself and treating yourself and talking to yourself and loving yourself as though you would another person. And that kind of has, over this period of time, has given me a lot of solace and has given me the ability to be patient, just to wait till I can connect with other people. It's also made me think a lot about what is the quality of connection.
Nice.
Sometimes you can spend a lot of time with a lot of people and get nothing from it. And sometimes you can really apply yourself to how you connect to somebody else and be with them only for 5-10 minutes, but really get curious and really listen into them. And that kind of connection is a lot more efficient, as it were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice and satisfying and
Yeah.
yeah,
Nurturing.
nurturing. Yeah. So during this intense piece of work that's coming up for
Mm,
over a period of 5 months at least,
mm.
how will you make sure that you are getting sleep, getting your walks, getting your introvert time? I imagine
Um,
that's the challenge.
I think that I think that there's a way of kind of enmeshing them. Something that I've already started doing is learning my lines whilst walking.
Mm,
You know, I have discovered over time I'm really good at sitting at home and learning lines. But I've discovered a long time ago I did a one-man show, and it was an hour and 20 monologue, 1 hour and 20 minutes monologue. There's a lot to learn,
mm,
and I just couldn't learn it at home. So I started to walk in the park, and that kind of rhythm helped me to learn the lines. So it's another form of learning lines that I have discovered. And so already I've started to learn the lines for this play, and in order to get more efficient around it, I've been doing that whilst walking in the forest. So I'm still getting my walking in.
yeah.
But there's something about enmeshing there, you
Mm,
know, taking breaks in the theatre because we are socially distanced. We're going to miss out on a lot of that, time spent with each other because there may not be the space in a room, you know.
right.
So just to go out for a walk along the South Bank, incorporate, elements of my practices into the day as much as I possibly can.
Yeah, nice. Knowing
Yeah,
that there's big payoffs.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things I want to do is to cycle to work as
Mm,
much as possible. It's a long ride from where I am, but if I can get used to that rather than using the tube, that means that I can get my exercise whilst going to work, as
mm,
opposed to sitting in the tube not exercising whilst going to work.
right.
That kind of thing. I think just trying to incorporate as much stuff as possible.
Super. Super. Oh, that's fantastic. Well, it feels like we have the end of an arc of debriefing, rewired, relate.
Mm,
So, um,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And
nice.
I just really want to say thank you very much for introducing me to the course, and thank you for creating it.
Mm,
It was a really, really good course to do. You know, very you've laid out that program in a very kind of simple and accessible way, and take the kind of practices to take away from it, very easy to get on with. It's very, it's just laid out in a really beautiful way. So
mm.
thanks for introducing me to it. And I can't, anybody who's watching this, I cannot recommend it highly enough. Really, for self-development, and also for use with clients.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks for that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, we'll stop here.